Monday night, 8 o'clock, Boston College and Florida State's on. We're back from Nashville. Pretty upset. Hey, Billy, how are you? Welcome back to Charlotte.
I'm good. We're going to talk about the game, and I know you have a preamble here. Two things. Number one, I had a conversation with Nick Cullen walking out of the football game, and I think his sentiment perfectly sums up how I felt leaving this game. It never really crossed my mind that I will have left Nashville with an 0-1 football team. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe, I'm obviously a big believer in, fans not taking teams extremely seriously don't impact the team's ability to take them seriously. All of the offseason hype externally, all of the offseason expectations internally, and the talent on this team, I expected our team to go in and handle business against Vanderbilt. I don't care what conference they're in. I don't care what the situation is. I did not have this on my bingo board. And I feel like a lot of us are feeling that way right now on Labor Day, that didn't even expect that this was a losable game. Didn't even expect it.
It's a labor of love getting on this podcast and having a podcast on Labor Day, because this is just not where we wanted to be. But we didn't do a preview for the Vanderbilt game with hot wings and hotter takes. I knew about Pavia. I knew that he was a run-first quarterback from New Mexico State, and the whole Jerry Kill vibe coming over from there. Pavia beat Auburn last year. That was kind of one of those big late October, early November SEC, cupcake games that, wasn't ending up a cupcake. But it was not how any of us thought we were going to feel coming home. It was one of the best days ever on Friday and one of the worst days ever on Saturday. And it
was definitely the worst, 4 hours. I mean, please. Fun was still had in the afternoon. I will say that. But it wasn't one. I wouldn't say it was one of the worst days ever.
You can speak for yourself. I will speak for myself. I did not have that much fun on Saturday night. I had fun on Saturday night, but here's the thing. I was expecting Saturday to be like the best bar crawl of my adult life, and it was definitely not. So if you want to weigh it against expectations, you should.
Yeah.
I get that you had a good time on Saturday, but it was supposed to be a million times better.
Oh, no argument there. I can't believe it's so hard to paint the picture of what it was like leaving the stadium. And please forgive us, this is a little ununiform. Leaving the stadium was crazy. You walk into the stadium, it's 80 I'm no exaggeration, it's 80-20 Virginia Tech fans. I did not see a single Vanderbilt fan until I got into the stadium. And then leaving the stadium, first of all, hottest football game I've ever been a part of. We got extremely lucky in the first half. There were some clouds. It wasn't that hot. Second half, sun beating down, absolutely crushing you. People are in wheelchairs. There are ambulances everywhere. Virginia Tech fans furious. Virginia Tech fans sitting down, not getting up. It was pandemonium, Patrick. We have to start somewhere. So do you want to start with this preamble? Virginia Tech lost 34-27 if you didn't watch the game.
In overtime.
That's the score in overtime. But Pat, I know let's get organized here. Let's start making this bed that we've been pushing off for a while.
So after some Kool-Aid drinking, some off-season hype from several national media outlets, Virginia Tech went into Nashville, and Virginia Tech did not come to Nashville prepared to play Vanderbilt. They were overlooking Vanderbilt, and we were outcoached by Vanderbilt. We had an entire offseason to prepare, and we had zero plan for a one-dimensional quarterback who had limited downfield passing upside. We had zero offensive identity in the first half and didn't even try to throw the ball downfield until the third quarter. Ultimately, this game came down to a few plays, in particular having 2 zeros on the field at once, which negated a punt situation that turned into 3 points for Vanderbilt, which was one of the most ridiculous series of plays I've ever seen. Then we finally figure it out a little bit, start to move the ball, take that late lead with the Ollie Jennings touchdown, run out of gas, and everyone felt like zeros leaving the nightmare in Nashville.
Incredibly well said. I mean, yeah, incredibly well said. I not to be hyperbolic here, but I have not felt more. It wasn't just dejected walking out of the football game. It was shocked at what I was watching in the first half. I know my pops has been very vocal about, if you guys are the type of team that you're telling me you are, and every outlet is telling me you are, you should beat the crap out of Vanderbilt. And watching that first quarter, second quarter, it looked like I was watching a scrimmage from a team that had just started camp. And I do want to say, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this game, every single goal that this team has is still attainable from a winning a conference perspective, having a great season perspective. All of that is still out there. But if this is the product and this is the preparation that this team is going to put forth, we are going to be having conversations around, who's going to Shreveport versus do we have a chance to go to Charlotte to compete for a conference championship. That's not hyperbolic. That's not, overly negative. That's just a fact. And 9 months, 8.5 months to prepare, to come out this flat and unprepared is a massive letdown. And last thing I'll say on the big picture things, Chris Coleman did a great job talking about this on Tech Sideline. Is a loss like this costs so much, more than just like your feelings and you're upset and you have a rough day at work, your voice is a little crummy, but it's there's so much goodwill and so much buy-in and so many people pouring into the program that getting super granular. If you look at a play like this 0-0 penalty, is that the straw that breaks the camel's back for a donor who makes a huge impact on this team? Is that the straw that breaks the camel's back for, a couple thousand Virginia Tech fans to not want to go to a game anymore? I hope that's not the case. I don't think that that's the case, but that's what you have to think about with situations like this, is what is the actual cost of, blunders like this? This is why I think it's certainly important to have and want to strive to have hype and expectations coming into seasons. But, you have to live up to the expectations. And Virginia Tech failed to do that on a epic national failure level on national television in Nashville in front of a huge Virginia Tech crowd. It was almost like Virginia Tech lost a neutral site bowl game against a team that doesn't travel well at all, in embarrassing fashion. So, yeah.
It sucked. It was awful. The slow start is just so reminiscent of so many poor slow starts that we've had over the years. Old Dominion 2018. We're riding that momentum from Florida State. We go to Norfolk and we lose by 2 scores and almost give up 50 points in an awful stadium. And we'll get to the awful stadium because I thought that First Bank Stadium was objectively horrendous. And I know that a lot of Hokie fans had a similar experience. Boston College 2019, same thing. Get a little bit of off-season hype. Not to the level that we've gotten on this team, but the wheels completely fell off in Chestnut Hill in that 2019 opener. Old Dominion 2022, very similar vibes again. Just how poor we played and how many mistakes were made. You talk about the 0-0 thing. We'll talk about the 0-0 thing, but that was similar to the special teams error that we had in Norfolk with the punt go over Peter Moore's head and I think they ran that one back for a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. Just tough blunders that really could change the game. But we're going to roll this into a Hokey haiku, and then we're going to do a little bit more positivity on the vibes that were around Nashville prior to the game. And then we're going to break it down. So this one comes from Andrew Songer. He says, off-season hype high. Hokies invaded Nashville. Playoff hopes are dead. Playoff hopes are probably less than 1% alive right now. They're pretty
That's
much
just objectively not true. Like our playoff hopes are completely reliant on us winning the ACC, which this game had zero impact on. So completely disagree with both of you. If we come out and play like that, obviously not. We shouldn't even be talking about the playoff. We should be talking about beating Marshall. But the fact that I do want to stay, regardless of what happened on Saturday, every single goal that the team has stated they want to accomplish is still accomplishable. I do think that that's important to make that stunningly clear.
I think we all know that. But after what we saw on Saturday, it's an indictment on, are we able to get prepared so we can actually go into ACC play and win the ACC? And based on the data that we have right now, most people would tell you, yeah, I'm not placing any money on Virginia Tech to make the playoff. Virginia Tech's playoff hopes are dead. You know, he's allowed to hyperbolize too in his haiku. There was about a dozen haikus submitted, so thank you guys for popping them in here. But this was a lot of fun on Friday night. We got in. We drove from Charlotte to Nashville on Thursday. Had a really nice little caravan down to the Music City, and then Friday was just incredible. I mean, it was legitimately just a nonstop Hokey party on Broadway on Friday night. I felt like it was the biggest family reunion I've ever been a part of. You know, this is Bourbon Straight 2004 Sugar Bowl. You know, this is 99. This is 95. Like if anything can rival the community that we had in this town, all celebrating and having a good time, I think New Orleans is really the only city, unless there's anything that I'm missing there. But everywhere you would see friends that you graduated with, or friends that you tailgated with, or family that you grew up with that were in town. Everything about that was awesome. We threw a really fun party on Friday night at the Tin Roof Nashville. There were probably like 700 Virginia Tech folks there who had bought tickets to our event at the Nash Bash. Michael Moore and band played just a really unbelievable set. They went for like 4 hours. The party ended at 9 and they played for another 30 minutes. Everyone that came, great to see you guys. Saw a lot of new faces that I hadn't met before and got to see for the first time. But really appreciate the support and also just the feedback. Everyone who was there, coming up to us saying that this is one of the best parties that they've ever been to was it wasn't what I was expecting to have a good time. I was expecting for it to be a cool time, but I wasn't expecting praise that high. I know the band on the second floor had a lot to do with that.
And thank you to everybody who made it possible from a sponsorship perspective. I know the Spaldings, shout out to you guys, John Cran, all of the different sponsors that chimed in. To answer everybody's question, will we be doing this again? The plan is yes. And it was certainly the highlight of my weekend. So thank you to everybody that popped out. And sticking with us. Our first time doing it, never done it before. Threw a parent party at my parents' house in high school. Got in trouble. This was bigger than that. And it went better. So thank you to everyone that popped out. We had a fantastic time.
Yeah, probably.
Tin Roof, shout out. What a spot.
Man, what a scramble there at the beginning. That was certainly a scramble trying to get everyone in. Next year, Atlanta, South Carolina game. If you're a Hokie who is into event planning, we are going to outsource this next year. There's a lot of X's and O's going on behind the scenes that would like to not deal with again. So if you are in the event planning business, we will proudly sponsor you and your business in exchange for some help. But all right, let's talk about Saturday. pregame vibes. Jumped on one of those pedal carts to get to the stadium, the Holiday Inn lot.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My guy was so fired up. He was like, dude, you going to the game? I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, word. Hokey, hokey, hokey high, right? Is that what you guys say? He was a Bama fan, of course, but got me to the stadium. Hundreds of Hokies in the Holiday Inn lot, like backing up right to the stadium. Jill and Andy over at Nashville Hokies did a great job just kind of assembling the home base, and you rolled in there and you saw everyone there. It was impressive. Did you tailgate at all?
Not really. I had a bit of a late start. I set the expectation that I wasn't going to be doing tailgating. I think I got over to the stadium like right around like 9:50. Hung out in the lot for 10, 15 minutes. And then it sounds like I got luckier than everybody on my entrance into the stadium. I went in over by the buses, and getting in, there was a long line, but once I got to my seats, didn't have too much of a problem. It sounded like people did, though. I don't want to make it sound. I guess I just got lucky.
So I wasn't in the section next to the student section, which I believe was like section Q. But I heard from multiple groups that they were stuck inside like the tunnel area and just couldn't move because there were so many people confined to that space. And a handful of my friends missed the entire first quarter because people were just stuck in there. And I know there was a report that someone called 911 because they just were stuck. Like, I don't know. This is all a secondhand report, but to the folks who were involved with that, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. The amount of construction around the stadium and the fact that this was moved from Nissan Stadium to First Bank, and then, being on Broadway that night and seeing Nissan Stadium just lit up, like looking like it doesn't really have that much construction going on at all. That was criminal. But Vandy Stadium is it's certainly low grade. It's cool what they're doing with the north end zone and kind of their adjustments and additions that they've made over there. But as far as just getting in and out or just the lines, wouldn't call it a grade A experience there. Also, their students were just a lot of chirping from a lot of folks on their side of the fan base. I understand, you're 2-touchdown dog. You get a little confidence after beating them when their entire fan base, swarms your stadium. But a lot of counts on some bad chirps from Vandy kids.
I know it sounds like I'm just zagging you here. Like, yeah, we're going to get zagged. I mean, we came in, we're going to get chirped. Like we talked crazy. We took over their stadium. Like, you're going to catch a little flack. That's going to happen.
I'm not saying catching flack is bad. I'm saying the one that I had was like, like SpongeBob, like the meep little fish guy.
Oh, yeah.
The kid who was chirping our group was, probably you could have said whatever.
Meep SpongeBob.
You don't take insults from a guy looking like that is kind of my point. He looked like his head was like the shape of a pencil. So,
damn.
But let's talk about the football game.
Okay. Would you say that it was around 80-20 Tech advantage from a fan perspective?
I think there are probably 20,000 Tech fans there. Probably 80-20, 70-30. Couldn't really tell. They weren't really wearing black. They were more so wearing white. So we had a lot of fans in white too.
They're playing Cut You Down by Johnny Cash before the game. I mean, I'm looking around. I'm saying this is unbelievable. Like, this is legitimately a home game. A lot of different SEC Twitter groups picked that up, chirped us for it. I mean, it literally was like a home game. We just lost. We lost at home. First half of football, to repeat your point, Pat, like, we looked completely unprepared to play a football game. Literally looked like a team that was in week 2 or week 3 of camp. Thing that was interesting, but the first half is there were only 8 possessions in the first half. Virginia Tech only had 1 possession in the first quarter, which was a ball that was intercepted. That ball was batted down on a screenplay, which was one of what seemed like a million screens that we ran on Saturday. Ball was batted down, ball was intercepted. And I do think that Kyron, following that interception, did have a little bit of happy feet. I think if you asked him, and we all watching it, we know Kyron is a better quarterback than he played on Saturday. His stats were, I believe he was 22 of 33. Let me make sure I just get this. Yeah, Kyron was 22 of 33 for 322 with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Now, those numbers were not reflective of the Kyron that we saw. I personally think Kyron is a game-changing key impact player, and we did not get his best game on Saturday. And I do think that interception, Coach Pry, we'll talk about this later, but he used the word shell-shocked in his post-game presser. It just seems like following that, we were almost out as a unit to not make mistakes, and kind of grasping at straws in that first half. My only other big observation from the first half, I'll flip it over to the defense. The defense was not good all afternoon. Tough afternoon for Mansour Delane. Mansour Delane was left in one-on-one with no safety help for most of, if not all day. Dorian Strong looked every bit of an NFL corner. I'm not sure if they even looked to his side of the field the entire afternoon. But one thing that stood out to me and didn't make sense was second quarter. It is, I think it's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8. We had Mansour and press man on an island on the wide side of a field. Quarterback takes snap, cocks it, throws it into the corner of the end zone, touchdown. It just seemed like we were putting Mansour did not have his best game, and we were also putting him in a position where he was one-on-one all afternoon with no safety help. It was a tough watch. But those were my first quarter observations. Not a ton of possessions, and really didn't do anything to help ourselves or do anything really well.
Yeah, just looking at the drive chart and the drive summary was really tough. Our longest drive of the day, measured by time of possession, was our first drive of the day. We had the ball for 4 minutes and 24 seconds. We ran 8 plays and gained 25 yards and got picked off. It was the only time we had the ball in the first quarter, and we just could not do anything in the run game at all. Couldn't establish the run game, and everything in the passing game was east-west. Just completely negating anything that we learned about our team last year. When we went on that stretch post-Pitt, we threw the ball downfield. And everything on Saturday was, whether it was the first half or the fourth quarter, the third quarter was awesome. And then the Jennings touchdown in the fourth. But screens, checkdowns, and then just blown up run plays. Or, I know Drones was our leading rusher, or had our most carries. He had 16 carries. I know that includes some sacks.
I struggled to understand what we were trying to accomplish in the first half. And look, again, like, we had the ball for 1 possession in the first quarter. That's an interception. And again, I almost viewed it as more of, just trying to stay out of trouble. The one thing that made note that the offense got better in the second half. I know we're about to talk about the second half here. I think one of the more embarrassing moments of this first half that, there were plenty of times where I would look at you or look at my dad or look at my cousin who is like an LSU fan, or some friends who came up just to watch and kind of be like an innocent bystander. They were rooting for Tech, but just scratched like you couldn't believe what you were watching. Was we kick a field goal, it's 17-3. And you're like, okay, like, just get into halftime, like get out of here and go get on the chalkboard and figure this out. You force Vanderbilt to punt, and we get the ball back with like 17 seconds left. And we take 3 passing attempts and get 2 sacks going into half. You're risking injury, you're risking fumbles, you're risking scoop and scores. Like, it was a mind-numbing first half and really difficult to wrap your head around. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't. That was one of the question marks for me, was just watching that. We're taking timeouts as Vanderbilt goes 3 and out, and instead of getting into the locker room, we're trying to take chunk passes down the field where none of that's worked yet. So that was a question mark for me as well. Are you good to move to the second half?
Yeah, I think the last thing is Vanderbilt scored on 4 of their first 5 possessions of the game.
Mm.
And you're just like, what the hell is going on? Where is this football team that I knew from the last couple games of 2023? And I know like some of our wins in 2023, we weren't playing the best competition, but what we know about this Vanderbilt team is that they're not Georgia or Alabama. Obviously you're going into their house and they're an SEC opponent, but
no, they're not
clearly,
Mississippi State. I mean, they're not Mississippi State. They're it's essentially it is the joke Power 5 team in the country. Now look, we can look at the recruits they brought in and everything else, but Virginia Tech, with the talent that they have, had no business being down 17 points. And I think, as we talk about the second, you don't come back from 17-0 if you don't have a more talented team than the team you're playing. Virginia Tech not only came back from 17 points down, but took the lead in the second half. And I think that's a testament to, number one, the depth of Virginia Tech and the talent of Virginia Tech. Vanderbilt had guys going down like flies in the second, third, and fourth quarter. It seemed like every single drive, they would have 1 or 2 guys that would get injured and have to, get limp off the field or go off on the field. By the way, more context, it was unbelievably hot, like uncomfortably hot. Yeah, that was the hardest pill to swallow for me is we are a more talented team than them. We should absolutely beat Vanderbilt. And we did not. So I don't know how else clearer to say that. 4 out of 5 possessions, Vanderbilt scoring points against Antoine Power Island, Dorian Strong, Mansour Lane, this defense that we've heard about all offseason. And they just couldn't find a way to stop them.
I just hate how you said this is like, the laughing stock of the Power 5. And you're like, Virginia Tech, shouldn't be doing that against Vanderbilt. Then you just look at the last 12 months and you see that we did this against Purdue, who's, not necessarily not a non-laughing stock. And we also did this against Rutgers. Okay, let's
and Old Dominion and Marshall, and we're gonna go off on a nasty place if we keep going on that. Second half. I do want to say really solid adjustments out of halftime, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. Virginia Tech scored on 4 out of 6 of their possessions in the second half. My only critique is all of these scores came from far. We never really had a sustained drive. Our longest second half drive was 7 plays. Tyler Bowen wasn't only scheming wide receivers open, he was scheming wide receivers to be completely naked, like streaking down the sideline, wide open, hand in air. Now, we missed a ton of them. We had some really bad drops. But I do think that it's worth noting that we came out of halftime and found something. Number one, with both Gosnell brothers. The Gosnell brothers were absolutely lights out, fantastic in the second half of this football game. I actually have no idea where we are if the Gosnell brothers are not on this football team. Stephen Gosnell finishes with 3 receptions for 72 yards. Benji, 4 receptions for 61 yards. They were both great in the second half. I know we had a drop. We had an Aiden Green drop that I believe one of the Gosnells made up for. We had a Gosnell drop on an
that Tootin made up for.
That Tootin made up for off of a Gosnell block. So, hat tip to getting it right and scoring points. Virginia Tech was able to put up, 14 points in the fourth quarter, 10 points in the third quarter, but the mountain ended up being too high to climb. And you had Kyron go down with what looks to be cramps. Coach Price said it was cramps as well. But man, some other observations from the second half before I have some stuff on, the very tail end of the game.
Daquan Felton, 2 catches for 13 yards. Just hate to see it. Why couldn't we get him the ball in the first quarter? Why couldn't we get him the ball late in the game? I know Jay Lane had a few nice plays. Interesting wrinkle with Takai Heath, number 2. Had some serious lightning quick speed on a play that he probably ran 40 yards and only gained 6. When that ball was in the air to Ollie Jennings, did your heart skip a beat? Was it just floating in the air
forever? Oh, it was in the air forever. I have to give, my dad always compares this to kind of play to one thing that Kyron does really well is when he's under duress and finds a receiver. Cam Newton, when he played Alabama in 2012, his throw to Lutzenkirchen, there was a million things going on, and he was able just to float the ball out there and let the guy run under it. Kyron does that really well. It did seem like that ball was in the air for a dog's age. But I don't know if you felt this way. Like the entire second half when we were playing catch up, it was never like it was never as much excitement as it was like, oh my God, like, please, like, just get us out of here with anything other than a loss. Like it felt like, it felt
we at one point after that Jennings touchdown, we were asking if we could just end in a tie and get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
It was so hot and it was so horrible.
Oh my gosh. It had to be the sickos game of the week. Like some of the things that happened in this game were unbelievable. But yeah, so Jennings scored our last touchdown, correct? Was this our last touchdown?
Jennings scored our last touchdown.
So yeah, Jennings scores our last touchdown. And this is what drives me nuts is Jennings scores that touchdown. And after all of this nonsense, all of this bullshit that you've dealt with in this football game, like you are now up 7 points with 4 minutes to go. And then, Vanderbilt goes 70 yards in 6 plays. Like I can't wrap my head around how teams that are great football teams. And this team has an opportunity to do that. It's week. Like great football teams don't do that. Like they don't like you can play very poorly for 90% of the game. You found the lead. You have a chance to right all of your wrongs, forgive all of your sins from the previous 56 minutes of this football game. And Vanderbilt, the Commodores of Vanderbilt goes 70 yards in 6 plays. Absolutely unbelievable.
Abhorrent.
Unbelievable.
Abhorrent.
Abhorrent is a perfect word to describe this.
It was Ian Book 2019 Notre Dame.
Oh my gosh.
Prevent defense, cover your kids' ears, bullshit. Why are we dropping into prevent defense against the guy who has completed 11 passes today? This is not Andrew Luck. We're rushing 7 and our linebackers are dropping so deep, and go Diego go runs and motors for a first down every single time. It was so easy for him.
I do want to say to Diego Pavia's credit, I do think Vanderbilt is going to win a couple of games they have no business winning just because he is such an unorthodox football player. Like I very much compared him to in his presser, he said he was angry that someone compared him to a poor man's Trace McSorley. I actually think he's like a poor man's Johnny Manziel. Like he just makes stuff up on the fly. It's kind of like watching somebody play backyard football. Shovel passes, running options, like underhand tosses to wide receivers. Like he was phenomenal. He was so fun to watch. And he's going to cause some teams some problems. And that's what happened to us. It's just, it seems like we have seen the running quarterback that you cannot stop from running the ball movie a million times. Like a million times. There was no answer. It wasn't like okay, he would do it every once in a while. Every drive they scored on, I feel like he had a 15 or 20-yard scamper every single time. Every single time.
I can't believe you just called him
Don't-
fun to watch. I thought Nussmeier and Miller Moss last night, they were fun to watch. Diego was
objectively speaking, he was awful to watch if you're rooting against him. But I feel like his style of football is just so different than anybody that you can possibly try to get a look for, that he was just super unique. And I'm telling you, Vanderbilt will beat somebody they have no business beating just because of Diego Pavia. It happened on Saturday. He willed his team to a win. He had a quote in the postgame presser, and this is kind of, alluding to how I felt the way that our team entered this football game. Diego said, "When I step on the field, I think I'm the best player in college football." Is that true? No, Diego Pavia is not the best player in college football, but he believes he is, and he played that way. And he was the most impactful player in the football game that was played in First Bank Stadium. So I got to tip my cap to the guy, man. He absolute baller, and made plays for his teams. And I think one thing that isn't reflected in his stat sheet is the amount of balls that his wide receivers dropped. I mean, there were multiple times on 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 12s, he would throw balls to his receivers that would hit him right in the chest. They drop it. So, great game by Diego.
He was good. The little shovel passes that he was doing,
Oh.
he didn't pull that out of his hidden trick compartment until like really late in the game too. We didn't see much of that in the first half, and then all of a sudden he's doing these shovel passes, including one that went forward and out of bounds, and they got a first down out of it, which I've never seen before in my entire life. I thought that was I don't know what that was.
I know you had this written down. Our last possession was embarrassing. Vanderbilt goes down, scores a touchdown, 70 yards in 6 plays. And Virginia Tech, we get the ball back with 1 minute and 51 seconds left. And immediately when we get the ball back, my first thought is, look, I don't care what you do with the ball. If you can score, like, fantastic, let's go ahead and do that. Do not give Vanderbilt the football back. Like, don't give Vanderbilt the football back with an opportunity to just go ahead and score. Well, we run three pass plays and take 15 seconds off of the game clock. So you're giving Vanderbilt the football back with 1 minute and 24 seconds. And Vanderbilt, to their credit, gets themselves all the way in the position to kick a 38-yard field goal, a 43-yard field goal that somehow they miss. Should have lost the football game right there after that final possession. And to add insult to injury,
that was
gets hurt.
That was the point where Jay Litt turned to me and said, "Can we please leave as a tie?" Because not one Hokie fan in that stadium thought we had a chance to win that game in overtime.
No.
Not a chance, especially after seeing Kyron just hobble off the field with cramps. We knew that we were cooked because we couldn't stop Diego.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't stop Diego. And again, it felt like grasping at straws type situation. And also what was interesting, we had never established the run. You get to overtime and you're like, for Vanderbilt, we can get 4 to 6 yards anytime we want by running the football or running our quarterback. For Virginia Tech, we have not sustained any drives or put anything together that was outside of that first drive that we had in the first half. Was it 12 or 17 plays or something? Yeah, we had a 13-play drive that ended in a field goal in the first half. It was the only sustained drive that we put together the entire football game. Everything else other than that was explosives or busted coverages from Vanderbilt that gave us an opportunity to score. So we're going into overtime, and I certainly felt awful about going into overtime. And Virginia Tech loses the game. In not walk-off fashion. Vanderbilt gets the ball first. They go down and score, and Virginia Tech, do you want to talk about putting Kyron in overtime?
We get Colin Schley in there, who had heard some good things about his his preseason, and he gets in there and scampers for our first down right away. And oh my God, proof of life. Like, is this guy going to be our hero? And then all of a sudden we put Drones back into the game after we had all seen him come off. So we're like, all right, is he just going to drop back and pass it? Because there's no way he can move. And it's that tried and false in this instance, QB designed run up the middle, and he gets like 3.5 yards. That wasn't working in the first half. It wasn't working in the second half. And the only time it worked in the game was when the guy who was running was wearing number 3 on his jersey 2 plays prior. I don't know why you mess with the quarterback mojo like that. And then you pull him out and you put Schley back in there, and it's game over.
Mm-hmm.
It's just embarrassing.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, you go from one of the other things. I guess we can transition this into just like levels of embarrassment from this game, and then I have some big question marks. But a couple things: awesome Peter Moore punt that likely would have been down inside the 10 in the first half. Just completely don't look at the ball, and it bounces in between our 2 gunners and rolls into the end zone. Super embarrassing. Vanderbilt shooting themselves in the foot a ton in this football game. We had drop balls at the sticks. We had penalties to extend drives on our side, kill drives on their side. They dropped 2 interceptions, missing a 43-yard game-winning field goal. It wasn't like we, were outlucked. I feel like we had fumble luck. Vanderbilt fumbled the ball 4 times, and we recovered 0 of their fumbles. Very rare for that to ever happen. I know Sam Jesse's probably going to talk extensively about that on the Two Deep show. Double zeros. I have never been so furious and confused at a situation like this. And I can't believe we've gone 43 minutes without talking about it yet. It's absolutely unacceptable. Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt is lining up for a field goal to go up 10 points. They get a delay of game and are pushed back 5 yards. So then they bring out their punt team to punt us back the football. Thank God. This is great. We're going to get the ball back, down 7, chance to tie the football game. Punt happens. I believe it's a touchback or something. And we're like, okay, let's go back on offense. And there's a penalty. Virginia Tech had 2 number 0s in the game. This is a 5-yard penalty. We will re-kick. Vanderbilt trots their field goal team off. They kick. They get 3 free points. Unbelievable. And in the moment, I'm kind of thinking like this might cost us the football game. Like it was early in the game, but it's like this might actually cost us the football. This might be the difference between winning and losing, and it absolutely was. This was right after Tech had taken their open possession down from the field for a touchdown, and it's completely inexcusable. The only time I have heard of this happening was I was on the phone today, and apparently this happened against Florida and Utah for Billy Napier's team. But it's one of those things that when you look at the depth chart, you can't put yourself in a situation where this is possible. And ultimately, it is one of the larger reasons we lost this game.
I am well aware that there are 85 scholarships on this football team. Here's what you do. 1 through 85 for those 85. We don't need 2 number 2s. We don't need 2 number 4s. We don't need 2 number 0s. Of all numbers, the fact that it was number 0 that this had to happen. I'm so annoyed by the fact that I look at the sideline and I see, number 4, and it's not Mansour Delane. I'm like, wait, who is that? And I think it's like Chance Fitzgerald is number 4 on offense. But everyone wants a single-digit number, and I understand that. But now we are made an example of in college football. You watched the SC LSU game last night. Every single time, I believe it was USC on special teams, they would make an announcement that they were changing uniforms from one of the players. And Reese Davis would say, you don't want what happened in the Virginia Tech game where you're getting flagged for 2 guys on the field with the same number. It's just awful that we are having to talk about this. It's an ultimate blunder that should never happen. And there's zero reason that we should be talking about this right now.
Yeah. We talked about the Kyron running into the middle of the line of scrimmage on 2nd and 9. Last but not least, I'm not sure how many people caught this. I think it was mentioned on the television broadcast. When we came back for the last play of the game, I was following a timeout in overtime, and Colin Schlee runs off the sideline, and he's looking back at the sideline after he leaves from a timeout. So you had 2.5 minutes to talk about whatever you want to talk about. You could talk about, what you're going to eat after the football game. You could talk about, something that you see that might work, or you can talk about the play that you're going to run. And he's looking back at the sideline. He has his hands over his ears because he's trying to hear what the call is from the helmet comm. Was clearly having trouble hearing it. I just didn't understand how we didn't leave the sideline with a play. Like maybe we were making an adjustment. Maybe we saw something late, but usually leaving the sideline, you're leaving with a play. So those were all huge, just blunders for me. And that turns the page into some of the bigger question marks that I have around the game. And look, I just want to remind everybody, we're 47 minutes into this. This is not fun. This is not my favorite thing to do. But this is losing to Vanderbilt in week one. A ton of rotating at the wide receiver position and at the running back position. It felt like every other play, we were sending in a different wide receiver, putting a different running back in. And for a quarterback who has spent so much time in Miami and this offseason getting chemistry with guys like Kwon, guys like Ali, it just seemed like it's got to be so difficult to get a rhythm and get into a groove when you're completely changing the wide receivers that you have out there. I get that we have a lot of talented wide receivers. So does LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, and you don't see any of those programs playing like 8 or 9 wide receivers. So I'm all for like the kid's good enough to get him some burn, but ultimately there are probably some wide receivers who are head and shoulders above the rest of the guys, and those are the guys who need to get the most reps. As far as I'm concerned, there's no reason that Steven Gosnell should not be on the football field. There's no reason that Ollie Jennings shouldn't be on the football field. There's no reason that Daquan Felton shouldn't be off the football field. We had some times where Schlee was lining up at wide receiver, which was just bizarre to me. And it seemed like we were just trying different things instead of putting our will against a team that we are more talented than. So that was confusing to me. I believe we played 6 or 7 different wide receivers and 3 different tight ends, all got snaps. And then the other one was just having APR as a quarterback spy on Diego Pavia. APR is your best pass rusher. This would be akin to Ohio State making Nick Bosa spy a quarterback. It just doesn't make any sense to me. When you have somebody like Kelly Lawson, an athletic freak who's standing in the middle of the field as an option, it doesn't make sense to me. And Pat, you mentioned it earlier. On that, after that last touchdown from Vanderbilt, I don't think we blitzed again. I think we just sent 3 or 4 the rest of the game. We ran prevent and let Diego Pavia just kind of do whatever he wanted to do. So we completely went away from rushing the quarterback, which is obviously and has been one of the bigger areas that we felt like we had a huge advantage. We lost the sack battle again against Vanderbilt. So those are a couple of question marks that I had.
I just don't know why we looked so slow up front on both sides of the ball. You watch the highlights of what I have seen, a few screen grabs on the X app where our offensive linemen are just looking silly. And you're right, Billy. Like there was no opportunity where we decided that we wanted to rush everyone at the end of the game. And I think
or even +1, or even one more.
Our interior defensive line looked slow, and they were getting beat off the ball all game. I thought our front seven in general was pretty poor at tackling on Saturday. And you know what? Another thought that I had that I know a lot of people had, but where was the utilization of Tootin in the run game? We only ran him 9 times. I know he caught six passes out of the backfield where he's always extremely effective, but you have a guy that our offense was propelled by this guy last year. When he ran the ball successfully, it opened up our game so well, whether it was drones running the football or us being able to get the ball downfield or utilize a read option or play action. And everything we saw out of Tootin when he was utilized was east and west. That doesn't mean you go away from running the football with him. You just need to try something different. I thought you wanted
completely agree. I mean, it was unbelievable to me, the lack of utilization of Tootin. And I'll say this now, I was talking with Casey, our native Ohio State buddy, and he made a great point. He said, look, I watched the entire game of you guys, and when I look at this, without even looking at the stat sheet, Kyron looks like he's being asked to do absolutely everything. He had 16 of our 30 carries. He had incredibly spotty protection. You're rotating all of his wide receivers. If you just looked at it and you took all of the names off of the jerseys, you'd be like, oh, okay, this team must not have a lot of confidence in either its running back or its wide receiver group or its tight ends or its running back. And you're asking Kyron to do everything when we, been told all offseason and believe that there is a spoil of riches at the, at the skill positions. And I do think that a ton of pressure was put on Kyron in that situation. So I thought that was an interesting observation from a somewhat outsider, but need to figure it out. Need to figure out a way to get your guys the ball, and that starts with Bashal Tootin. As far as I'm concerned, there's no reason that he should not have 15 carries a game. And I think we left the first half with him having four carries in the first half. Again, I know possessions were limited, but you got to find a way to get him the football.
The man scored 2 touchdowns. He scored 2 touchdowns. Give him the ball at least a dozen times every single game. And when I say that, I say hand him the football or pitch him the football. Love that we utilize him in the passing game, but please let him run the ball. Let's roll into some statistics that we found relevant from Saturday. You want to take that?
I have a awful one for Sons of Stats. Virginia Tech was favored by 2 touchdowns going into the game, 13.5-point favorites. I was on it. I was also on the over. I bet more on the over than I bet on the spread. So I am a winner for that. But 2 touchdown favorites this past weekend went 58-1 straight up. And the one was Virginia Tech, the only team to lose straight up as a 2 touchdown favorite. So
you know what I really just can't embrace is that Virginia Tech made 0 headlines all summer in the best way. In the best way. We didn't have any F-ups prior to camp. We didn't have anyone go down in training camp with any injuries. It was probably the best offseason that we've had in a really long time, doing some good work on the recruiting trail. And then all of a sudden, week 1, we can't even get out of August, and we are the headline of the opening weekend of college football. The only upset.
Yeah.
So
that's what happened. Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt scored on 4 of their first 5 drives of the game. We already said that. Going into this season, as far as what we knew we should have been preparing for, Pavia last year had the 5th most designed quarterback rushing attempts and the 2nd most scrambles last season. And a scramble is a rush on a pass play. running quarterbacks that beat us last year. Gavin Wimsatt from Rutgers, Brennan Armstrong from NC State, Jordan Travis from Florida State. It's not like we haven't seen a running quarterback under this defensive regime. And then even Grant Wilson. You guys remember Grant Wilson from Old Dominion ran for a ton of first downs last year in game 1. We had all freaking offseason to prepare for a guy that runs the football, 80% of the time he takes the snap. And I dropped my phone. He outrushed Virginia Tech by himself on Saturday. Helmet sticker for him. I know Matt Berry gave Vanderbilt's entire team a helmet sticker on Saturday. What else do we have here for stats? They only completed 11 passes all day. Time of possession battle. Vanderbilt, 34 minutes, 32 seconds. Virginia Tech, 25, 28. It's because we couldn't run the football. Ollie Jennings is averaging a touchdown every single time he suits up for Virginia Tech. So good on him, and glad to have him back. Had 2 catches on Saturday. These two stats are not fun at all. Coach Brent Pry is 1-8 in 1-score football games since taking over at Virginia Tech. And Virginia Tech is 0-11 in the last 11 non-conference Power 4 games. That last win,
oh my God,
West Virginia at FedEx. That is not counting Liberty. That is not counting Old Dominion twice.
Not counting Marshall.
Not counting Marshall. Yeah. It's the hottest game we played since 1985.
Not counting Cincinnati.
Wait, which Cincinnati was that?
Cincinnati in the Military Bowl, 2018.
Yeah. So
objectively awful. I'm trying not to slam the panic button because that would be silly. But this is embarrassing in a decade of what has come with our fair share of embarrassment. Should we talk about the presser? I think I rolled out of bed this morning. Had a great night of sleep last night. After getting back from Nashville, stopped in Pigeon Forge on my way back. Cool stop. So I woke up this morning and I saw Brian Kelly's post-game presser, and I admired his. I'm obviously not an LSU diehard fan. I'm sure that they have their things that they're upset about and their nitpicks and everything else, but you could tell there's a standard at LSU that wasn't lived up to yesterday, and it was very much portrayed that way in the press conference. I think, and Grant Mitchell wrote a great article about this. It's on our website right now. I think what left me confused, and I'm prefacing this by saying I love Coach Pry. I think he's done some awesome things, is in this presser specifically, it came off as if we had just lost a game to Iowa on the road, or Ole Miss on the road, or some team where it's a toss-up. We just lost as double-digit favorites in front of at least 60% your own fans in week 1 of a season where people are talking about our program as a potential playoff contender. And whether that's true or earned or whatever, that's what the country thinks of your program. And to come out and look as unprepared as we did is an impossible pill to swallow. And people are going at it on social media and policing one another. And I used to be that guy. I used to be the guy that tried to police everybody and try to hey, let's calm down. Let's not get so angry. I mean, people are angry. There are high expectations for this program. There should be high expectations for this program, and to go in and to lose to Vanderbilt, which is one of the programs that people like to laugh at and point at as a joke, is awful. And that's what happened on Saturday. And I think when words like shell-shocked and humbled and brought back to earth are thrown around, like, you know, I don't know how we're in a position where a team that last year, again, was 7-6, like, we were fired up about how we finished last year. We were fired up about the talent we had coming back. And again, I said this on the Boundary Corner season preview. This year we had an opportunity to capitalize on the momentum and the talent and the returning productivity we had. That's not something you just earn. You're not just going to roll out of bed and beat some of these teams. And that is very much how it looked like we showed up in Nashville on Saturday, that we were rolled out of bed and we said, you know what, we're going to wake up, we're going to put our pads on, we get some nice uniforms, and we're just going to, it's just our God-given right to beat Vanderbilt. And they kicked our ass, like, on national television in front of our own crowd. So, yeah.
What more do you need to be humbled?
Yeah.
This team was humbled, you know, like, what are we talking about? I just have such a hard time believing that we had this much time to prepare for this team and that things were moving in the right direction. And this was a level-headed, focused group that was aligned to going in there and going 1-0. And, you know, unfortunately, the presser left me not very confident in going forward of what is to expect, right? I mean, you have that much time to prepare for a pretty one-dimensional offense. And you come out so flat in the first half on all fronts. You get pushed off the ball. And then the presser, there's no fire. There is no fire in the presser. That's why I was bummed out. You know, it was, you know, right, we're bummed out, and we're gonna get the guys together, and we still got a lot to play for. Where was the juice? You know, where was the emotion? It was what I
used to not think that these were a big deal. And a big deal is maybe not the right word, but especially now when you have probably more people bought in than have been bought in a long time, people will turn to that to gauge how they're going to further react. And look, it's up to the, you know, 100 and however many guys that are going to go to practice or practiced today to change it and to right the ship and to figure out what needs to be done to get this right. But, you know, ultimately, a lot of fans will look to the presser in some of these interviews to, you know, either feel a little better or kind of get an idea of what happened here. And it just, I'm very excited to turn the page to next week. But there is no really way around it. I know I'm going out of order here. I just feel like to put a bow on this makes more sense. Like, where do we go from here? I'll reiterate it one last time. This is a catastrophic national embarrassment. That is what it is. To have this much talent, this much time to prepare and look like that, it's truly bad. All of that said, this is a non-conference game on the road. Every single goal we've talked about is still attainable. But if this is going to be the product and the preparation that goes into it, again, we'll be talking about going to Shreveport versus going to Charlotte. So I truly hope if this team did need a wake up or did need a reality check, that this served that purpose. Because I certainly do feel humbled and reality checked myself. I actually don't, because the party was awesome and I prepared as best I could. But yeah, beat Marshall, please.
You know, I think the rationale going around is there's certainly a spectrum of the fan base. You know, we definitely have the most opinions go around during times of displeasure. I'm not going to come on here. Billy's not going to come on here after week 1 and say, hey, so-and-so needs to go, or so-and-so is on the hot seat. I think we have an 11-game season from here on out, and we're going to be able to make it more of an evaluation on where do we go from here after the next few games. I think I'm really interested to see how the month of September goes. You have 3 teams that you're staring in the face right now. 3 teams that have beat Virginia Tech in the last 700 days, or whatever 2 years is, 800 days. So we're going to learn a lot about this team over the next month. And I think we'll have a good evaluation of where we're going as we jump into ACC play. But I think
we also play Miami, who looks like they could beat anybody.
Yeah.
So they're also on the schedule for September.
And we are playing them this month. It is September now. But Marshall is a must-win. And I didn't think Marshall was going to be a must-win game at the beginning of the season.
It should be a must-win game regardless.
Right. Obviously, you're not supposed to lose to Marshall, but I'm saying in the grand scheme of this season, like no one was looking at Marshall and be like, oh, that's the must-win. We have to win Marshall. Marshall should be the check the box. We beat Marshall. Why do we open as 14-point favorites and now the line is 20? I think that is wild.
Because Virginia Tech got a reality check.
Especially considering they beat us last year. But I did get a stat from Rob Irby, and he said that I think it was our last 4 losses, Virginia Tech has averaged a margin of victory of 24.5 points over our last 4 losses.
That would be great. That'd be great.
Maybe the emotional hedge. I'm not sure. But should be a fun Saturday in Lane Stadium. I know it's going to be a different Saturday than what we all expected. I think Marshall, that 4:30 kickoff time that was announced however many months ago, we're all pretty fired up. Hey, we're going to be 1-0 going in, got a great kickoff time, going to get some revenge on Marshall. And now it's, oh my God, backs against the wall. Let's see what we can do. So I think there's an opportunity for Virginia Tech fans to be excited to see how we respond on Saturday. Shout out to Will Johnson and Jalen Stroman. Just thoughts go out to them. I know both of them got banged up on Saturday. Not sure the status of either, but I did want to say that bummed to hear that they are banged up. Any closing thoughts before we get into shout outs, Billy Ray? We got a few letters from the lunch pail. Do you want to read any of them?
I'll take one. Let's do one. I know a lot of people chimed in. Do appreciate it.
Guys, this sucks. We're not having fun doing this.
No.
I think we answered probably some of them. I did like Pete McGee's.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one you were going to read?
Yeah, I'll read it. Pete McGee, tendency. Great seeing you on Saturday, by the way. That was awesome. Tendency to overreact to week 1. 2018 comes to mind as the counter to 2024. However, would love to hear your record predictions for Tech for the rest of the season based on week 1. I can't do it, Pete. I need to believe that we are going to come back better. And I believe we are. Like I know these coaches. Yeah, I'll say I know these coaches can coach better than this. And I know that these players can come out and perform better than this. I wish that they did it in week 1. I don't know if you felt like this, Pat. Like in the first quarter, I felt like that Patrick Starr meme where he's like, "It's okay, Rocky, you can go when you want." I kind of felt like that. I was like, "It's okay, we're still gonna score like 50 points." But man, yeah, Pete, I don't know. I got a funny text from my guy Pete McGee today, and he said, "You know what? Everything's going to be okay. You have to lose one game to go 11-1." So Pete McGee, that was funny.
I saw one from JJ Singleton. It was like, well, the worst Saturday of the year happened again. The first Virginia Tech loss.
Another funny one was Casey yesterday was like, hey, look, Ohio State, they did lose to you guys, and you guys sucked in 2014. So, who knows? Who knows? We'll see. But no, we say this sucks because Pat and I, obviously positive people, don't love getting on here. Got a lot of love for the program, got a lot of love for the coaches and the players. And I think they all know that they can and hopefully do play and coach better. So I don't know how else to say that. So
yeah, I don't want to predict the record from here on out. I think I don't want that out there.
I just want to go 1-0 on Saturday. Let's do that. Gotta be better.
Any shout outs?
No, a shout out to everybody that came out. It was great. My brother and my dad were in the same place for the first time in a long time. I got to see my cousin Lindsay and her wonderful husband Caleb. It was great. It was like a big family Virginia Tech reunion. I got to tell you, that's the biggest bummer. It was such an awesome weekend with awesome people in a great town. And I don't want to say football ruined it because I still had a great weekend, but it certainly didn't add to the experience. That was my overall feeling on the weekend.
Yeah, shout out to the Hack and Hokies. All my dad's buddies made the trip. My godfather Scott was there.
Scott rocks, dude. Liked Scott. He was a good hang.
We had a lot of good people show up, which is awesome. I know kind of in my the last few years have really made a lot of us numb to all this, and knowing that they can't take the good times from us. They can lose on the field, but they can't take away the good times, which we've had quite a few of over the last few years. Yeah, I want to give some quick shout outs to the Hack and Hokies for making it down. All my dad's buddies, Uncle Scott, my godfather, was there. That was awesome.
Scott rocks. Good hang. Good hang, Scott. Like
all of us were sitting together, which was great. Just a lot of tremendous people were in town for this event. Whether it was the football game or coming out to Nash Bash, just some really incredible people who've been supporters of our brand from day one and every step along the way. Julie Smart Coob, who was handing out some of her bottle openers for her real estate firm. Appreciate the support with Nash Bash, and Zach from Spalding Equipment as well as John Cranham. You guys really helped make the weekend happen, so we appreciate you. I also want to shout out our Section 5 Club new members, and in particular our Founders Club members. Will Balberti, Kay Finn, and Scott Pelfrey all joined the Founders Club of Section 5 Club. We'll do a little bit more into the Section 5 Club on the next pod. We're giving away some Clemson tickets on the next pod as well to Section 5 Club members. We did a quick announcement of that during Hot Wings and Hotter Takes in our newsletter, but we want to get a little bit more thorough of our mission with that. So we appreciate you guys. But Billy Ray, I know we're going to the game on Saturday. We are day tripping. Is that still the plan?
The day trip is the move in Blacksburg by noon, so we can watch Texas and Michigan. Look, I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up and support the team, and I hope we play better. That's it. I hope you all do the same.
I got to tell you, I really hope it's not a close game in our favor, because yelling on defense in that heat on Saturday, I thought my brain was going to explode.
I'm glad it didn't.
Me too. Thank you guys for listening to our first and hopefully only lost pod of the year. We'll be back on Wednesday night with the Marshall preview. And from here on out, it is go Hokies beat the herd. See you on Saturday.